your screens, you will see arresting new pictures of the refurbished Houses of Parliament. We are told the entire complex has undergone a makeover. From the pictures and the lack of controversy, it does appear that most are satisfied with the aesthetics. We've been told that the Ministry of Culture has supervised the makeover, keeping in mind India's confluence of cultures, religions, languages. The new parliament will display replicas of the Jain temples in Gujarat, the Konark temple in Odisha, the Cellular Jail in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the Sanchi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh, and the Taj Mahal in Uttar Pradesh, among many more iconic symbols of Bharat Varsha. In a few days, we are told this new grand garbhagriha, so to speak, of our democracy will be unveiled. As we look towards the reopening with anticipation, it is also an opportunity to look back at what has passed under the grand parabola of the old Houses of Parliament. Unfortunately, viewers, our present-day parliamentarians haven't left much room for us to be proud of. Yes, we will get a new womb, so to speak, to nurture democracy. But if this womb is blighted by the tumors of malign agenda masquerading as lawmaking, degenerating debates, and terminally declining decorum, then viewers, we would have passed up a much-needed opportunity to revive parliamentary due process and procedure. The last sitting of Parliament was least productive since 2014. Someone, viewers, must step up to the plate, create space for true bipartisanship so that we can deliver to the public at large, viewers, a democracy they deserve. You know the problems. You know all the problems because, thankfully, viewers, we have cameras inside the Houses of Parliament. We can see when MPs skive during important debates. We can see when they dodge, when they misinform, and when they misbehave. Parliamentary ethos is in decline. The last sitting of Parliament was least productive, as I said, since 2014. I'll just give you some statistics. Lok Sabha sat for only 47% of the scheduled hours. The Rajya Sabha for only 42%. This is all according to PRS Legislative Research, a very worthy organization, viewers, that studies statistically these matters. There's also declining decorum. In August 2021, marshals were summoned and were attacked by members of Parliament who had decided to brawl and jostle over issues and the introduction of bills. During this session, ex-Vice President and then Rajya Sabha Chairman Venkaiah Naidu broke down. Yes, he broke down. He wept, lamenting the mockery of decorum and parliamentary practice. Viewers, there's been a sharp fall in time for debates and scrutiny over bills. In December 2021, Parliament session ended with 60% of the bills passed without scrutiny. Can you believe it? 60%. Some of the most significant legislations passed without discussion. The trend is on the up and is a disturbing reflection on the breakdown of spirit of bipartisanship in the House. There are a growing percentage of criminals among our MPs in Parliament. You know the statistics, they're on your screens, viewers. And some have very, very heinous crimes marked against their names, or at least charges of heinous crimes marked against their name. If India is to truly evolve as perhaps the most stirring democracy of the world, then we must begin from the 1st of February to redress some of these issues and reverse the decline in parliamentary ethos. But viewers, the big question is, who does the onus fall upon first to do this? Who is going to demonstrate that statesmanship? Let's open this up, because these are some important questions that need to be posed. And we have with us some very well-informed people and very well-intentioned people, some parliamentarians also, who can give us perhaps some reason to be optimistic about. Let me first, I would like you to, at least in an objective way, apportion some blame. Because at least we must know who's responsible. And let it not be an exercise in platitudes. Mr. Varma.
Thank you, Rahul. I think it's an important subject you are discussing today. At one level, we take pride and legitimate pride in being the world's largest democracy. At another level, there is hardly a day when the Garbhagriha, as you describe Parliament of democracy, is not adjourned. In its entire history, the House of Commons, to the best of my knowledge, has not been adjourned for a single day in the United Kingdom. We are fast reaching the point where there is not a single day when the Parliament is not adjourned. So obviously, we need to take stock of the situation. I congratulate the people of India for the new Parliament building. Change is a must, although I had reservations on the process in which it was made. With this new building, I hope we have also included what was written outside at the very entrance of the old Parliament building. Udara Charitanam Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. For the big-hearted, the entire world is our family. What is happening inside Parliament, however, is just the opposite. The opposition and the ruling benches believe that they must make a fine ideology out of the politics of disruption. You ask me to apportion blame. I cannot do so because it is a joint exercise. It is the business of the treasury benches to run the House. But for doing that, they also have to be responsive to what the opposition is asking for, to be democratic, to not use the brute numerical majority they have to push through bills. Equally, since you asked this to be objective, I blame the opposition, because at the drop of a hat they are in the aisle, in the well of the House, the rule books are thrown about. In my entire, throughout my period in Parliament, I did not one step into the aisle, leave alone enter the well for a protest. There is a certain decorum of Parliament. The nation looks up to it. And thirdly, I want to say, you see, what does Parliament reflect? It's not brick and stone. It's a spirit. This is not platitude, spirit and soul of a democratic nation. And to that extent, it will reflect what is happening outside, inside Parliament. If there is a feeling that individual liberty is in danger, if there is a feeling that inequality has almost become the norm, if there is a feeling that dignity is being denied, if there is a feeling that economic prosperity, which is also there, is not enough to lift up the rest of the millions upon millions of Indians, then that kind of a breakdown of trust will reflect in Parliament. It's essential. And lastly, without electoral reform, so the more brittle, the more lacking in integrity our polity keeps becoming, it will reflect in Parliament. So I think these are the reasons why we can only hope that the new Parliament building will function differently, but I am frankly not optimistic, because that is not what we have seen.
Okay, he's not optimistic, but he has identified the problem. Governance deficit will spawn questions, and the ruling government must show the magnanimity to answer them. They cannot resort to brute majoritarianism. The Treasury benches, of course, are primarily concerned with running the House, but that requires being democratic. These are some of the comments that Pavan Verma is making, if I'm allowed to paraphrase him. So I just want you to come in, Ms. Sanju Verma, and answer Pavan Verma, because there is a feeling amongst a large number of opposition leaders that they actually, to capture your attention and get you to respond, they have to jump on desks. And they might even have to, at some point, get into fracas with marshals that are then summoned in to use brute force to silence them. How do you square this? There have been accusations from, in particular, the TMC, that you have pushed bills through, ramrodded them without discussion and debate. And the statistics seem to suggest that the bills are not being discussed. Vast majority of them are being passed without scrutiny.
Rahul, between 1952 and 2014, in a span of 62 years, there were about 637, almost 50 years, 5 decades. It was the Congress which was in power at the center. And the number of ordinances that were passed in these 62, it was 637, out of which 456 ordinances, give or take a little bit, were passed by the Congress. So for the Congress or its allies to sit here and wax eloquent about how democracy khatre mein hai under the Modi government, I think that's a bit too rich. जो हिंदी में कहावत है, उल्टा चोर कोतवाल को डांटे, हाथी के दांत खाने के और दिखाने के और. Now, I presume Mr. Varma, with no offense to him, is from the TMC currently. I don't need to remind him that these are Malda-rights.
No, I'm not. I have resigned. I do not belong to any political party. I do not belong to any political party.
Because you change parties so frequently, you've sort of taken me by surprise. If you resigned,
no, I haven't.
Good.
I was in the JDU and then I joined the TMC.
But you were with TMC. Let me finish, Mr. Varma. I did not heckle you. A senior parliamentarian like you, I'm sure you can digest more than what is coming your way. If you resign from TMC, my apologies, well and good.
I was
good
just speaking the truth.
Now let me, since TMC fancies itself, I had one of those macadam moments, Rahul.
That's okay. You can invite him back.
We all have a macadam moment. Okay. Okay. Coming to, the more serious mood topic of the debate. The reason why I speak about TMC is because, this is a party that fancies itself as one of the key opponents to the BJP, given that it has been working on the premise that, Congress is no longer relevant in the larger scheme of things. Now, be it the education scam, which was headed by the education minister, who subsequently had to resign, Partha Chatterjee, be it Anubrata Mandal, who as the Bahubali of Birbhum, actually was one of the persons who oversaw the Birbhum massacre and was a mute spectator. For that matter, be it the law minister of West Bengal, himself involved in money laundering, Malay Ghatak. Just tell me, what kind of an opposition are we really grappling with? An opposition that is steeped in corruption, point number one, and corruption will always be a big issue in national politics. We have the general elections coming, next year. The other important thing, I was speaking of riots, be it the Malda riots of 2016, the Bhaduria riots of 2017, the Asansol riots of 2018, the Jadavpur riots of 2019, the Sita Kulchi riots of 2020. Mamata Banerjee has not covered herself in glory.
What is
now
this
let
about?
me come to the Congress. The Congress says, हम नफरत की जगह प्यार और मोहब्बत से लोगों को जोड़ेंगे. I want to ask Rahul Gandhi, what is the pyar and mohabbat that he's talking of? I mean, there is so much of hypocrisy. I am not amused by the mendacity of the opposition, and I'll not take too long. Recently there's been this narrative that, look, it was the Congress which actually, finally gave justice to the Sikhs.
Okay.
But who constituted the SIT in October 2014 and finally sent Sajjan Kumar behind bars.
Okay.
It was the Modi government.
What's the point?
Till date, Rahul, till date, there is no formal apology from either Sonia or Rahul Gandhi or Manmohan Singh, as much as they would like to suggest otherwise. And I also want to tell you, be it the Hashimpura riot, be it the Bhagalpur riot, be it the Kashmir genocide, be it the Aligarh riot, be it the Muzaffarnagar riot,
so you're saying,
be it the Kokrajhar riot, Congress has covered itself in unflattering terms with its hands soaked in blood.
Okay, so you're saying that a mendacious opposition...
I will take 20 seconds, Rahul, please. I will take 20 seconds because it's going to be virtually an all against BJP, barring one or two panelists, who I'm sure will be more balanced. Now, I just want to sum up by saying, when you talk about the Modi government, I believe that you have to look at the bigger picture because the smaller things tend to take care of themselves. This is the same Modi government which today has, to its credit, the world's largest financial inclusion program called the Jan Dhan Yojana with more than 48 crore bank accounts, of which more than 55% are owned by women. This is the same Modi government.
No, but what has that got to do with the functioning of the parliament, ma'am?
Called the Swachh Bharat Mission.
Okay, fair enough.
The Modi government, which is the world's largest health insurance program called Ayushman Bharat.
Okay,
it's the Modi government which today, thanks to it, there are more than
so Sanju Verma, you're saying...
105 unicorns.
I got it. You're saying...
So how can the opposition sit here and give a bhashan to the Modi
so you're saying that the mendacious opposition, and these are your words, mendacious opposition,
of course,
doesn't deserve respect because of a number of reasons which you have elucidated, and therefore they should not sit here and suggest that the treasury benches are doing bad by parliamentary procedure. That's basically what you're saying. Okay, let's open this up. We also have a member of parliament, as I said, a former member of parliament, people who've seen how parliament function closely. We've got Sanjay Jha, who's representing the Congress view. Sanjay Jha, how do you respond to Sanju Verma? And then I want to bring in Dr. Ranganathan, Mr. Raja Gopalan, senior journalist, as well as Ravula Sridhar Reddy, leader of the TRS. So let's go first to you. Mr. Jha, how do you respond? The onus is on you, says Sanju Verma. She's used the word competitive politics of one-upmanship in opposition benches, as a result of which, forget about outshouting the treasury benches, you're outshouting each other. And that's the reason why today there cannot be a consensus. Forget about bipartisan, there cannot be an intra-party consensus, inter-party consensus.
Rahul, first and foremost, I always enjoy being on the Converse program because you have a real civilized conversation on this show, and I will take over from where Pavan left. I don't want to respond to any puerile, petty, parochial, shall we say, instigation, which is, frankly speaking, not the purpose of your show. Let's look at the larger crisis that we face today, and I think that is what should concern us all. That, the fundamental problem, and I think Pavan mentioned that, in my opinion, is the way we fund our electoral campaign financing. Rahul, we can keep talking till the cows come home about corruption, retail corruption, wholesale corruption, big ticket corruption, but political parties, and I believe everyone is responsible for it, need to really factor this element into account, that if you don't have transparent funding, let us agree that we will have criminals and corrupt people in no matter how sexy and beautiful a parliament you make. The point is there in numbers. In Mr. Modi's cabinet, out of 78 people that I last read in a report, 42% had criminal records. And these are not, by the way, flippant and frivolous accusations. Many of them had very serious criminal charges. Now, obviously, somebody will make a rebuttal and say, well, the Congress has many, Samajwadi Party has, BSP has, and they're right. I'm sure in different percentages, all political parties are guilty. But how do we actually resolve this problem? And I think, these are issues if we don't address them, because they only come up, Rahul, sporadically. Now, something happens and we begin to discuss about what happened in Parliament, on why there is electoral bonds is a big issue, but we never, shall we say, resolve to say what is the solution going forward. Something is parked in the Supreme Court, but that doesn't stop us from taking very opaque electoral funding. Take an example of parliamentary gridlock. Isn't it a shame that today in a parliament where ordinary people of India, 30% living below the poverty line, the only hope they have is their legislators fighting for their rights. And you have a situation today where, one of the spokespersons said, the opposition is trying to, logjam the parliament. But let me quote to you what Arun Jaitley famously said, that parliamentary obstruction is our political strategy and it is a legitimate democratic form of protest. He may have been right, but that doesn't mean that you let complete sessions of parliament get obliterated. So I think at the fundamental level, Rahul, and I don't want to make this debate into, a political slugfest between the BJP and the Congress, because the Congress did not win forever and the BJP won't. Let me assure you of that as well. The truth is, India is much bigger than the sum of the Congress and BJP put together. I think all of us as individuals have our own rights. Regional parties have their own aspirations. And today, I think we all, shall we say, basically I think collectively we insult our own intelligence, our own capabilities, because we have lowered our bar of our politicians. So a politician in this country gets away with murder because they believe they are powerful, they can dictate media, they can frighten industry, they can threaten journalists, they can threaten an NGO, etc., etc. It's a very poor standard of politicians we have.
This lament is, look, you're entitled to it, and you are making, of course, some important points, but I just want to draw your attention to your own leader, or one of the putative president of the party, I suppose, at one time. He skipped the entire session of parliament. Though he's a member of parliament, he skipped on Bharat Jodo Yatra. He didn't even decide to stop. Now, how do you expect the opposition to be taken seriously when they don't take parliament seriously?
Rahul, let me just give you one example. In UK, because since we are talking a lot about BBC documentary these days, the Prime Minister who won the biggest mandate for the Conservative Party after Margaret Thatcher lost his job because he was not wearing a mask when the country was supposed to be wearing it. And I think that is the kind of standard that I truly applaud. I'm glad Rishi Sunak got a fine for not wearing his seatbelt.
You haven't answered my question.
Joe Biden is having an FBI investigation right now while he's in the White House. Do you think we will ever get there with the kind of standards we have today?
No, I mean, I asked you very specifically about Rahul Gandhi skipping an entire session of parliament because he wanted to promote his own, I don't know, personal, political, I don't know what interest he was promoting, national interest. But surely that should be done via parliament, should it not? But he skipped it.
Rahul, let me give you a short answer to that. I think a politician or a public leader has every right to do so in parliament and definitely has to be in a mass contact program. The Bharat Jodo Yatra is an outlier event. It won't happen for every year. It was scheduled by the Congress for this time. But I think the fundamental point I have is Mr. Modi does not wear a mask, and we all know the super spreader.
One second. I don't want to get sunk in a BJP Congress face-off. One second. You also had your time. Just give me 30 seconds, please. Let's open this up. Let's get everyone in. I'll come back for seconds. Let's all be disciplined. We'll have seconds. No problems. Dr. Ranganathan, look, we've heard two partisans and one former member of parliament who has taken a statesman-like position tonight. Where do you come in on this? Because, look, we can talk in larger, frame this entire debate in very large issues. But I think unless you don't shame, you're not going to have change. And one needs to identify this problem. Who takes the lead here?
Yeah, hi Rahul. It's great to be back on Converse, which is far and away, in my opinion, the best program on news television right now, even better than India Upfront, if you don't mind my saying so. And it's great to be amongst friends, even though they might disagree with me or I might disagree with them. The real issue is what you talked about, and let me go straight into the nub of the whole issue. But before I do that, I just heard my good friend Pavan K saying that he's never leapt onto the aisle or rushed to the well. Well, it is entirely appropriate that he's no longer the member of parliament, because people would ask, what the hell are you doing there? If you never rushed to the well, you don't belong there. But I mean, that's how far we have descended. But the fact of the matter is, if I can get back to the issue, And the issue, Rahul, you talked about democracy. You talked about a historic occasion that we're going to have next week. Well, let me say this, democracy, more often than what we'd like to admit, is not so much the defeat of the elected as it is the defeat of the electorate. And let me say, one of the most iconic speeches that were given in the older parliament, if I can say so, was, of course, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's tryst with destiny. I don't know who's going to inaugurate this and the kind of speech that would be given for the new parliament, but if I can say this tongue in cheek, what we've done is not tryst with destiny over the last 74, 75 years. We've messed with our destiny. And it is my thesis that more important, much more important than where you say something is what you say something. What you say is more important than where you say it. So I put to you that increasingly on the great issues, the major issues that would catapult this country of 1.4 billion people to middle income economy, which is what we all should really worry about, that our GDP per capita right now is $2,500 or $2,000. It should really be $15,000 to $20,000. This is all that matters to every one of us, because we've seen the fruits of liberalization and we've seen what we can achieve, but we are still shackled. So the tragedy is we seem to be more worried about where we are going to say or do things in national interest rather than doing things in national interest. And I think it would be what should have taken us 5 or 6 years to catapult ourselves or leapfrog, as the term goes to middle income economy, will now take us decades. Let me give you 3 or 4 examples where the opposition is actually working in cahoots with the ruling governing party and vice versa on the things that they should be working together for the development, for national interest. Let's look at the farm laws. Now, clearly those 3 laws would have catapulted us to a middle income economy within, I dare say less than 10 years, because I've done all the data. I've actually crunched all the data. Instead, what has happened is that those farm laws that were promised in the manifestos of the opposition parties, the moment Modi brought them, they all started calling them black laws. They did a spectacular U-turn. 44% of our ready labor force of 515 million people, Rahul, is involved in agriculture. 82% of all Indian households are involved in agriculture or they benefit from it. In the West, rather than 44%, it is 2 to 3%. These farm laws would have really benefited us in more ways than one. And what has happened without any logical reasoning? The government has taken back those farm laws to placate the opposition or whatever factions they may be. We have gone against national interest. Let me give you another example. And there, by the way, the opposition sides with the Modi government in taking back that farm laws. So it doesn't matter where, from which rostrum they would have shouted, whatever they did. The fact is that in cahoots, they worked against national interest, and we're going to pay for it as Indian taxpayers. Number 2, 1,833 public sector units we have. 400 of them are non-functional. Every year, the allocated budget which Ms. Sitaraman is going to table in the parliament, 21% of that goes up in propping up these sick PSUs. But rather than the opposition saying, agreeing with 2013 Modi avatar that the government has no business to be in business and he himself has taken a U-turn, the opposition doesn't want any privatization except for Air India. There has been not a single privatization. There has been disinvestment in one PFU, but it has been invested by another PSU. So this kind of thing is being supported against national interest by the opposition. I can go on and on. I can talk about the public sector banks that have had a capital infusion of 6 lakh crores. I can talk about the debt to GSDP. Average state debt to GSDP is 35% more than anything else in the last 15 years. And yet we have farm waivers, loan waivers. We have freebies. So I put to you, my thesis is that wherever they might be collecting, the opposition or the ruling party or our MPs, without the good Mr. Pavan Verma, they are now actively working against national interest on the issues that really matter to us. And that is the great tragedy, Rahul.
So in short, playing to the galleries and through them, the vote bank, it's all talk, little action. Mr. Rajagopalan, do you think this is the problem, or one is more guilty than the other?
Rahul, out of this panelists, I am very emotional to join this debate because I covered Parliament from 1977, from Morarji Desai to Narendra Modi. I saw Madhu Limai, Mrinal Gore, Madhu Dantavate, Jyotirmay Basu, Pilu Modi, M.R. Masani. Can you believe, out of these panelists, I am the only one correspondent who is very emotional because from 2004 to 2014 and 2014 to till today, there is no tall leader who can bring opposition and the ruling party, whether be it a speaker or a tallest leader like Atal Bihari Vajpayee or L.K. Advani. My point is, after 2014, the behavior of parliamentarians, because they cannot see Narendra Modi in that seat, that revengeful, vituperative, and vengeful anger which they emitted against Mr. Narendra Modi. The unruly behavior of members of parliament, after 2014 I saw, and I must give concession to Mr. Pavan Verma because I covered Rajya Sabha for 40 years, never seen Pavan Verma in the will of the house. But there is no etiquette among the members of parliament. Rowdyism, they made stand on the table, dance, sleep, tore paper, tore ordinance. It is like a Chandni Chowk. I am very sorry to say, when I saw Pilu Modi coming with a band, with a brandishing that he is a CIA agent, that type of tall leaders, they came and protested against the government. But today, you saw Aam Aadmi Party people are behaving like an anarchist. They dance on the table. They try to take away the papers, rule books, etc. But my understanding is, I fully blame it on opposition. I differ from Mr. Verma, Pavan Verma, because 2014 mandate, 2019 mandate could not give solace to one particular family. That family created the mayhem in parliament. And I am sorry to say, the new parliament, let us wait and watch whether it is good. Because Rahul, I recollect one important thing. George Fernandez, the way in which he came into the parliament and, spoke for 1 hour without any paper or without any document to rely on. He tore the Indira Gandhi government into pieces. Such type of leaders we are missing, sir. And moreover, parliament is there to debate, as Pranab Mukherjee said, and not debate, decide. But here, we are creating a mayhem. We converted parliament, the Garbhagriha, into a Chandni Chowk, Moor Market type.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Reddy once. Mr. Reddy, you represent the TRS, now called the BRS, at least at the national level. The opposition, Mr. Rajagopalan says, must answer today. How do you respond to him?
I don't understand, actually. For all the good things that Modi government, that shows that they are achievements, responsible, they'll be shown as responsible. For whatever we are fighting, actually, what is the opposition is fighting for? Now, Mr. Ranganathan was actually talking about farm laws. Lakhs of farmers have come on roads protesting the farm laws, saying that they'll be against the interest of the farmers. And governments had discussions with them, and the Prime Minister didn't want to talk to them, rather. A delegation went. Finally, the government has taken it back. And Rahul, as you rightly questioned, is this government really giving time for debate and discussion and consultation in the parliament? Now, did ever opposition get enough time to discuss the common man issues? Did this parliament discuss the price rise of essentials in length? Did this parliament give time, the ruling party gave time to discuss the fuel price rise?
Yes,
did this parliament give enough time for debate for levying GST on common man essentials? Now, Mr. Ranganathan says, in any country, rather, in any dispensation, any situation, the ruling party is held responsible for running the government and delivering the goods.
Opposition also.
let me tell you, sir. Let me tell you. I also bring in a position there. We are equally responsible. When the government gives you time,
why do you dance on the table of the house, sir?
Can you
if you are
please
an
wait for a
opposition
minute?
leader.
Why
do you dance on the table? Why do you tear out the paper? Why do you try
Rahul,
to kill the Prime Minister? You know?
Okay, one
Rahul,
second. Mr.
members went to the
Rajagopalan,
house.
he didn't interrupt
in
you.
a good debate,
Mr.
I don't
Reddy,
want to unnecessarily go for
Mr.
a...
Reddy was not interrupted. Please, he never interrupted anyone. Please, let's not interrupt him. We can have rebuttals. No problem.
As you rightly questioned, don't interrupt me for 5 minutes. You have spoken enough. I listen to you. I respect you all. Let us respect each other. So what I'm trying to say, did the ruling government gave enough time for discussion for levying a GST on common man essential items like milk, curd? And, are we giving enough time? Now I would like to ask you, in any situation, the ruling government is responsible for delivering goods. Now in this debate, few of my friends are trying to showcase the opposition is responsible for all these failures of the Modi government. Number two, actually, I wanted to discuss, you are talking about the ethos of the parliament, constitutional provisions, democratic spirit and all that. Fine, agreed. The opposition also is equally responsible to uphold the respect of the parliament in either houses. But here, in the new parliament building, Bhumi Pujan, was the constitutional mandatory provisions were respected? Who is the head of the state? President of this country? Were they invited? When you say the new parliament building is going to be a reflection of the pride of this country, image of this country, the president, the vice president are not even invited. And by all standards, if you are a government to respect the constitutional provisions, they were supposed to be invited. That was not done. Did ever consultation take place? Listen.
1 second.
He wants to finish. He wants to finish. Let him finish.
Let me tell you. Have patience. When you are building such a huge, when you have taken a decision to build a new parliament, start a new era, don't you think that the opposition, when you say opposition is equally responsible for development, don't you think it is also equally responsible?
Okay.
That the opposition need to be considered. Finally.
Let him finish his final point.
I differ with Sanjuji that opposition doesn't need respect. Ma'am, the ideology that you speak on a daily basis, Dharam, Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, everybody,
When did I say that?
Parliament, every system.
When did I say that?
Deserves respect. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
okay. So let's
Rahul.
So the opposition leader here is saying very clearly that we are not given respect. We are not treated as worthies who can be tasked with raising issues on behalf of certain constituents. And if we don't even get that respect, how do you expect us to come to the table, metaphorically speaking? Okay, now, large number of people want to come in here with rebuttals or their own comments. Dr. Ranganathan, since you were mentioned, 1 second. Since
Rahul,
Dr. Ranganathan and Sanju Verma were mentioned, let Dr. Ranganathan come in and Sanju Verma. Yes. Doctor.
No, very briefly, Mr. Reddy, the previous panelist from the TRS, perhaps he thinks that we are debating in the Houses of Parliament and his lies can go unchallenged. I'm sorry, this is not going to happen. So let me factually correct him. A, the farm laws almost verbatim were there in the manifestos of most opposition parties, including the TRS and definitely the Congress. And one of the reasons why I really love and respect my good friend Sanjay Jha is that despite being in Congress, he supported the farm laws. He supported those 3 laws. So I really, hats off to you, Sanjay. Now, coming back to the TRS gentleman, he's saying exactly the opposite. In fact, later on it turned out, Supreme Court report, 82% of the farm and farm lobbies were actually for the farm laws. The only people who were against the farm laws were the Adhatiyas and the middlemen. Now, sir, did I interrupt?
Why did the government withdraw it?
You were cautioning
Mr.
others
Reddy,
not to
didn't disturb, please.
Please,
Yeah.
please, thank you. So, as I was saying, this is the kind of facetious arguments that the opposition comes with. No wonder Modi keeps on winning. because they side with whenever Modi goes against national interest. And in repealing the farm laws, I'm sorry, but Mr. Modi went against national interest.
Okay. Sanju Verma.
May I please come in?
Sanju Verma. Yes.
Rahul,
Yes.
can I comment for a minute?
You're
You know,
coming. Everyone
let me-
will get one chance. Yes. Sanju Verma, finish please your point. Then I,
I
want
also
to...
want to come in, Rahul.
Yes, sir.
Rahul,
Yes, sir. Please go ahead, Sanju
first and foremost, you know, Prime Minister Modi clearly said that the decision to repeal the farm bill/laws was taken in national interest. And I think, Mr. Modi knows a lot more about governance than Mr. Ranganathan or others of his ilk. Now, let me come to the second point, and I will contest the lies of the TRS or BRS spokesperson, whoever he is. You are sitting here and giving a bhashan to the BJP. You did not allow the Telangana governor, Tamilisai Soundararajan, to give her customary address once she completed her 3-year term in September-October of 2022. You sit here and give a bhashan to the BJP, whereas when Tamilisai in April 2022 wanted to give her customary Ugadi address, given that Ugadi is a big festival there, the entire cabinet of KCR walked out, forcing her to not give her address. You are the same party where Tamilisai just 2 months back, she wanted to go and address a rally and participate in the Medaram Jatra. She had to travel 8 hours by road because you did not allow her a helicopter, which she is entitled to as the first citizen of the state. Okay. You are the same Telangana party which saw to it that the Kaleshwaram project cost rose from 12,000 crore to 1.2 lakh crore at the expense of ordinary taxpayers.
Okay.
You are the same party
What are we discussing, Rahul?
whose close confidant.
No, she's attacking you.
KCR's daughter is involved in the liquor scam.
Okay, now
stop
please.
giving a lecture to the BJP.
Okay, 1 second.
No,
There is-
Rahul, I will take 20 seconds more because you always heckle me. I have never given a free
heckle
run
you,
like
ma'am.
others. No, you give a free run to others, I'm sorry to say. Let me now complete. I will not take more than 20 seconds. You know, a lot has been said about Modi government not doing any big ticket reforms, apart from the fact, that we decided to privatize Air India. Forget about the fact that we privatized Air India, which was nationalized way back in 1953. Forget about the fact that we decided on consolidation of banks, which were nationalized by Indira Gandhi in 1969. Forget about the fact that we did away with one of the most costly, legislation by the Congress by doing away with retrospective taxation. Forget about the fact that we brought in FPI in defense, in insurance, in railways, caveat.
Okay.
Forget about the fact that we brought in the telecom reform, which was a long-pending demand of the telecom industry. But I would like to focus on the fact that show me one government which has married welfareism with economic reforms. How much have we given by way of direct benefit transfer to the poorest country, Rahul? Do you know the numbers?
Okay.
Without a single penny being pilfered by middlemen?
Well,
23 lakh crore, which is more than 12% of India's GDP.
Okay.
Rajiv Gandhi ke waqt, out of every 1 rupee,
Okay, I just want to say-
85 paise was pilfered by middlemen.
Okay,
Now
fair enough.
every penny
You know,
goes
Rahul,
to the
1 second.
poorest
Afraid we are
and the
discussing
marginalized.
Okay.
So don't sit here and lecture
Okay,
Modi
fair enough.
government on governance.
Look. We are not getting into who has done how much. Remember also
why
that
not?
1 second,
Why not?
Sanju ji, Mr. Modi had also said that he
You
was
allow
going
the
to
others
promise.
to deviate from the topic
No, 1 second. He also did
with
say.
rabid impunity.
1 second. He did also say that he was going to bring in minimum governance. Minimum government and maximum governance. That's what he also said. But today the government is actually involved in a lot of sectors, especially as you have said.
To be in business.
Yes, especially as
But
you have
Rahul,
said.
this is not the subject of the debate.
Exactly, but
No,
I'm
no.
just.
This is not
I'm
Why
just.
are you
subject of the
asking
debate.
Mr. Varma? The subject of the debate is that
So please
Modi
allow
has done
me.
more
No, 1 second,
than
1
any
second. Let him,
opposition party in the previous
I'm
5
just
or
saying
6
we are not
decades.
getting into who's done how much. We are getting into how we are going to revive the Garbhagriha of our democracy, which has got lesions on
Yeah,
it. Okay,
exactly.
yes. Pavan
Can I
Verma.
come in, please?
Yes, make your point. Make your point, Pavan Verma.
No, very quickly, Rahul, I've heard the speakers. I think the real problem is the breakdown of trust. You know, for instance, let me give the example of Converse. I've participated so many times, and there was always room and time for discussion without acrimony of the kind we are seeing today. And I'll tell you what is the reason. Look at the quality of language of politics outside Parliament between leaders of political parties opposed to each other. That kind of deterioration in quality is being reflected in Parliament. Secondly, if the opposition feels, and facts will bring this out, that it is being targeted outside Parliament by the misuse of central agencies, that anger will come in somewhere within Parliament in the breakdown of trust. Thirdly, the question about the farm laws is very illustrative. I agree with my good friend Anand that their implementation in the long run may have led to a more modernized agricultural sector. But I totally disagree with the manner in which the farm laws were rushed in through one session without discussion, without being referred to a standing committee. The manner in which it was passed was one of the blackest days in recent times for democracy. And the BJP understands it. And I'll tell you, as far as political expediency within Parliament goes, okay, the opposition, I agree, supported farm law reform and opposed it in Parliament. The BJP brought in GST and opposed it in Parliament. The BJP opposed Manrega. The BJP brought in Manrega. These things happen, but the far more important point is, we must restore trust. Between two
trust
sides
deficit
of the same coin, which is the treasury benches and the opposition. Last point, Pranab Mukherjee, as the leader of the House in the Raj Sabha, used to say, he used to tell his Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, if I see you on my side of the benches, you are going to lose your job. Go on the other side and talk with them so that we can build trust. That is the kind of spirit we want back again.
Okay, spirit back again. Okay, final quick comment, Doctor. Yes.
No, I really respect Pavanji what he said, and to a great extent he's also right, the manner in which those farm bills were passed. But let me also tell him, this is not to educate him because he knows so much more than I do. The fact is that you had for 16 years parliamentarians as well as Swaminathan committee deliberating these very laws. Now, if Modi thinks that these are the laws that are there in the manifestos of the opposition party, why would they oppose them? That was the thinking. He was not to know that the opposition is the most hypocritical collective ever devised, that they would even go back on their manifesto.
Well,
that is the problem, Pavanji. That is the problem.
Rahul, one second.
Yeah, look, I need to wrap up.
Rahul, only 1 second. Only 1 second.
1 second.
We were only on talking about forms law, but at this time of Women's Bill, Reservation Bill, the Rajya Sabha was shut, and when Telangana, Andhra Pradesh bifurcation bill was done, pepper spray was used. Advani fell down.
Yes.
Can Andhra Pradesh and Telangana MPs go?
So I think the 5-letter word is trust. How do we bring it back? How do we rebuild it? I think we've identified the problem here, viewers. We've identified the problem. And I come back to the original, maybe it's a shibboleth. Coming back to the original, who is going to take the step? Who is going to take that statesman-like step that is needed to bring back trust, which will perhaps lead to a degree of bipartisanship? That question, viewers, remains unresolved tonight. I leave it at this. On this Republic Day, viewers, when we should be thinking very firmly about the direction that the Constitution has given our country, I don't think we could have had a more apt debate. New Parliament, but will it lead to new parliamentary practice? That's the fundamental question. Trust is the problem. Who's going to build it back? Viewers, ponder it.